Thanks a lot. So now we have an opportunity for some short questions. You can pose them in Croatian or in English. The first one is already here.
Thank you. You have stated yesterday regarding the political strategy of the left and regarding the developments in China that the Chinese Communist Party is not communist at all. At the same time, you have stated that the rigidities of the center in a general historical evolution enable practically the spaces of the peripheries to develop new relations of productions and a new system that would perhaps be emerging there. Now, regarding the political strategy, you have said that decommodification and reclaiming the commodified space by the left should be a part of that political strategy. And Mr. Libeletz has ironically stated that the Chinese Communist Party is focused too much on the mere development of the productive forces. That is more commodification. But it seems that it has enabled them to have a much more space of maneuver than in the sense of ignoring that kind of development. So if decommodification is to be a strategy that the left should pursue, where, to what extent, and with what way? That is, with which new forms, with which new political economy could that form of power build-up that is going on in China and the rest of the world should be pursued? And regarding the Europe, you have practically stated that we should welcome the dissolution of the European Union. But, for example, as Slava Žižek said yesterday, and as Immanuel Wallerstein wrote in his article 2 days ago, why shouldn't Europe react in a different manner? That is, strengthening the central institutions and then leaving this social democratic legacy that is existing as a platform for new gains. Thank you.
Well, I'll start with the easy answers and then go to the difficult one. The easy answer is about the European Union. I think it's very unrealistic. The call of Wallerstein to the Europeans to strengthen the European Union, to face to liberate themselves from the dependency on the US leadership, if not hegemony, is, in my opinion, very naive. The ruling classes of Europe have no interest in that conflict with the eventual conflict with the US. I think we do not share the same view here on the collective imperialism of the triad and on the European Union. The possibility of a strengthening in the circumstances of the European Union to face the challenge is, in my opinion, totally unrealistic. That's the easy point. The difficult one is China. China is more complex than many other countries, only if it has 5,000 years of history and 1,300,000,000 people. I always recall it is equal to the Americas from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego plus Europe from Portugal to Vladivostok. So it's necessarily very complex. Now, after Mao, China moved in 3 successive periods. Deng Xiaoping, then the 90s, then the 2000s. Deng Xiaoping tried to have Maoism, but with dismantling the communes and re-establishing but the family, peasant family, but respecting the fundamental principle of access and even equal access, or almost equal access, of all peasants to land, which was the specificity of the response of China to the challenge, and which he puts China in a very, China and Vietnam, they are the 2 only countries in the world which have had the access of land to all the peasantry. which means in principle excluding the principle of massive expropriation or accelerated expropriation, the historical way of capitalist development. Now, but after that, in the 90s, we had another strategy which developed fast, which was taking advantage of the globalization, the liberal globalization, by giving priority to export manufactures, made possible not basically by foreign direct investment, which did play a role in in modernizing the transfer of technology, but as the motor of a high growth, accompanied in the name of developing productive forces by growing social inequality and also regional inequalities. Now, the World Bank described the thing in a wrong way by saying that is the proof that market capitalism is far more efficient than socialism. But the success of those 10 years, the 90s of China, was made possible by the Maoist revolution, which had created the basis. This is why that model could not be copied with same results successful, neither by India or by Brazil or by any other country of the South which had not gone through a radical revolution and which had not achieved. The only country, but it is a small one, which can copy it and copy it, is Vietnam. This affair of the access to land. Now, but we can see that as of 2002, China has started correcting that top priority. Now, the point is that when the World Bank described it as if also this pattern could continue, if not forever, for a long time, could continue and continue and continue. And the major rhetoric which is developed around China in the medias focus on that. China, the next hegemonic power, replacing the declining hegemonic power of US, proving that one can develop within the logic of capitalism and within the logic of liberal, globalized, imperialist capitalism. And therefore that the thesis of, among others, Samir Amin, of delinking and of auto-centered development as a way of associating a pattern of development with changing the balance of forces to the benefit of the popular classes is just utopia, inefficient, etc., etc. I consider that this pattern could not continue for a long time, and that therefore the so-called high rates of growth of China based on that pattern could not be extrapolated for 50 years, and then find China indeed at the top of all societies, because it would develop internal contradictions and global contradictions which make it impossible for a long. And that has started to be so. But I also see that the Chinese leadership has understood it before 2008. The change did not come as a result of 2008. As of 2002, they started, and the facts are there, correcting it on by three sets of measures. One is shifting the center of priority, the priority from export to internal market. Figures are there, which proves that this is real. Slow and accelerating. Chinese way of moving slowly to accelerate, not big plans that starts too fast. And second, by massive investment in intensification of agricultural production associated with a large variety of so-called small industries, which are not so small, in so-called small towns. You know, a small town in China is a town of less than 3 million people. That is also factually going on, plus the renovation of eastern old industries, basic industries, and so on. Now, that is interesting, because, yes, it is capitalist. This is why I'm saying it's not a socialist program. It is capitalist in the sense that it is developing productive forces and through patterns of based on commodification. But it is also creating the conditions that first it is in conflict with the logic of the global capitalist imperialist system, and second, it does create conditions for a renewal of, let's call it class struggle, relevant social responses to the challenges. So China is facing a challenge also. It's not, neither it has solved all problems by socialism or by capitalism, but it is facing the same very tortuous way. But you see, we could say that of other advances of Latin America in very different conditions, which are facing also the same challenge for a country like Venezuela, completely destroyed by oil, which has destroyed agriculture, industry and everything, and it's oil and you import everything. Rebuilding a variety of productive activities is a long challenge and program. In rebuilding this variety, how modes of organization which will be taken from capitalism, including commodification, but possibly, and that's possibly associated with a growing pattern of democratization of the society, which means introducing a growing socialization of the management of that, all that are possible. And therefore, to me, when I discuss that with Chinese, I find different answers to my questions. Some of them, when I say that, they say, no, it's too late. It's already, the capitalist forces are such that there are declining chances. Others, and many others, including people who call themselves, label themselves new Maoists, and they are growing in China, saying, no, it's not too late. So the roads are open and similar. Now,
Samir, can we let time for another question, because we have to end very soon?
Because he has asked an important question with respect to Europe. In the case of Europe, yes, decommodification perhaps is a very strong word, but re-establishing, which is part of decommodification, the public services, including social security, including health, public health, public education, etc., is perhaps the starting point for gigantic struggles which can be won